Okay, and for part two of our little introduction to pure data, we're going to take a look at messages. So we previously talked about the objects in pure data and the different kinds of objects that there are. We talked about linking them together by hooking up the outlets of objects to the inlets of other objects. And the reason we do this is that objects do things in response to messages. So when we send a message like say something into the print object will cause that string to be displayed in the output window of pure data. Likewise, if we send numbers into a plus object, those numbers will be added to whatever number we've initialized the plus object with. If we send a bang message to a metronome object, it will start the metronome off, and what the metronome does is send a bang out its outlet at predetermined time intervals. So in this case, the metro object is going to send a message out, a bang message out its outlet every 500 milliseconds. So let me open up a patch to just sort of show you that stuff in action. I'm just going to turn the video off for a second so I give my computer a chance to turn the fan off, which helps the audio a little bit. Okay, so here we have that little patch I just showed on the slide. So you can see if I click on the say something message here, which is connected to the inlet of the print object takes that input through its inlet and displays it on the output window of pure data. And you can see if I click on a different message, then print processes that appropriately. Here I have a plus object, which, as you might expect, causes numbers to be added together. We initialize it with the value of 2, so whatever number comes in the inlet is going to have 2 added to it, and then the result is going to be sent out the outlet. So when I hit 1 here, we see that 1 is added to 2, and the result is displayed in this number box down here. And you can see when I click on 2, the plus object behaves appropriately for that as well. And I mentioned the metronome object is a special kind of object that outputs a bang message at its outlet, in this case every 500 milliseconds. So when I initialize the metro object, I can set that argument to be any number. But you can see here that once I start the metronome by sending it a bang message in its inlet, that every 500 milliseconds, or twice a second in other words, Metro sends a bang out its outlet, which is displayed in that bang GUI object. And if I send a stop message into Metro's inlet, it stops. So objects do things in response to messages. We create pass messages through sort of chains of objects in order to cause things to happen. So the leftmost inlet of an object is usually hot, in that sending something into it will trigger output. This is not always the case in pure data, but it's almost always the case, so it's a very strong convention. Other inlets, that is not the leftmost inlet, other inlets are generally cold, which means that if we send data into those inlets, they will do something to the object, they'll change its state, but usually by convention, they don't trigger output. So again, an example is probably the best way to demonstrate this. Let's get rid of that, so no confusion. Okay, so what we're going to do is we've got a plus object down here, and we've set it up and we have no arguments that we've passed into this. I'll talk about arguments later, but we haven't sort of told the plus object to add anything to the numbers that come in its inlet yet. So if I So by default, it will add 0 to any numbers that come in the inlet. So if I click up here on number 2, plus object adds 0 to that and passes the 2 to its outlet. If I then click on 6 up here, it sends a message into the plus object's cold inlet. So this will change the state of the plus object and it will change it into a +6 object, but it won't send anything out the outlet. So you should see when I click here, nothing visibly really happens except you can see me clicking up here. So internally the plus object is now a +6 object, and when I click on 2 up here again, we should be adding 6 to that 2, and the result 8 is displayed down the bottom here. And you can see, I can demonstrate the effect again by, say, clicking up here and changing the plus object to be a +7 object, click on 2, and now the result is 9. So you can see the difference there between the hot inlet on the top left, which when I send a message in there causes output to be sent, and the cold inlet on the right here, which changes the state of the object but doesn't immediately result in output being sent.